Short story Men Without Women by Haruki Murakami. In this poignant narrative, we explore the depths of loss and the transformative power of absence in the life of our unnamed narrator, a man who discovers the profound meaning of isolation through the devastating news of a former lover's suicide. This video was powered by the AI Pandora.io. In Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women, we meet our unnamed narrator awakened by a late-night phone call that shatters the silence with its harsh, metallic ring. The call comes after 1 in the morning, pulling our narrator from sleep into a strange reality. He answers to find a man's emotionless voice, delivering devastating news. The man's wife has committed suicide. The caller, identifying himself as the deceased woman's husband, speaks in a detached, mechanical tone, simply stating, "My wife committed suicide last Wednesday," followed by the curious phrase, "in any case." Our narrator stands frozen in his white t-shirt and blue boxers, holding the receiver as the caller hangs up without explanation, leaving behind a void filled with questions. The narrator puzzles over this mysterious call. How did this man know about him? How did he get his unlisted phone number? Why would the husband call him of all people? We learn that the woman who died was someone from the narrator's past, someone he once dated years ago but hasn't seen or spoken to since their relationship ended. The husband has left the narrator suspended between knowledge and ignorance, providing just enough information to disturb his peace, but not enough to understand what happened. The narrator returns to bed where his wife has awakened. Asking if someone died, he lies, claiming it was a wrong number. But his voice now carries the unsettled energy of death, something his wife immediately senses. As they lie awake in the darkness, the narrator reveals to us something shocking. This woman is the third former girlfriend of his to have committed suicide. He reflects on this disturbing pattern with disbelief, wondering why these young women chose to end their lives and hoping their decisions had nothing to do with him. The narrator refers to this third woman as M for privacy reasons, explaining that he can't share specifics about their relationship to protect those still living. Despite this, he shares that M wasn't the type to commit suicide. She had all the brawny sailors in the world protecting her, a metaphorical expression of her strength and support system. The narrator then creates an imaginary origin story for their relationship, though it didn't happen this way. He pictures them meeting as 14-year-olds in a junior high biology class. In this fabricated memory, he asks to borrow her eraser. She breaks hers in two, gives him half, and smiles. This simple gesture makes him fall instantly in love. He suggests this reimagining makes things easier to accept, creating a pure, innocent beginning to their story, free from complicated adult emotions. In this fictional first meeting, he describes himself as a typical 14-year-old boy, easily aroused by even a warm west wind. Yet Ms. Beauty transcended physical desire. He portrays M as someone so spectacular that she made him forget such base instincts. The first girl to ever make him feel this way. Though their actual meeting was different, he prefers this version, where they connect at the best age for a first encounter. In his narrative, M suddenly disappears. He looks away for a moment, and upon turning back, she's gone. He imagines some crafty sailor must have lured her away to foreign shores. The narrator describes his resulting despair as deeper than any ocean, revealing the profound impact of losing her. He begins to hate himself and questions everything. Yet, paradoxically, after losing M, he begins seeing her everywhere. In places, times, and people. He keeps the imaginary half eraser as a talisman, believing it will guide him back to her someday. He pictures her being sweet-talked aboard a ship by a smooth-talking sailor, emphasizing her trusting nature, the kind of person who would give half her eraser to a stranger. The narrator describes his attempts to find traces of her, collecting fragments of information. But these clues never form a complete picture. Her essence remains elusive, vanishing like a mirage with an infinite horizon ahead. The narrator continues his poignant reflection on lost love. He describes his relentless pursuit of M, traveling from port to port across the globe, from Bombay to Cape Town to Reykjavik to the Bahamas. At each destination, he arrives just too late, finding only traces of her presence: an unmade bed still warm, a distinctive whirlpool-patterned scarf on a chair, a half-read book left open, stockings drying in the bathroom. The elusive M seems to be spirited away by sailors who sense his approach, always keeping her just beyond his reach. The narrator acknowledges he's no longer 14, but is more weathered, experienced, and knowledgeable now. Yet he reveals that a part of him remains forever 14, the innocent boy waiting for a gentle western breeze, which he associates with M. To him, M represents a woman who never stays in one place, but importantly, not someone he would have expected to take her own life. He struggles to articulate what he's trying to say, perhaps discussing essence rather than literal truth. He reflects that M is someone he should have fallen in love with when he was 14, but their timing was mistaken. They met much later in life, when she was no longer 14, though that 14-year-old girl still existed completely within her. The narrator describes intimate moments with M, how she would seem to travel through different ages in her own private time zone, sometimes appearing older, sometimes younger. He held her tightly out of fear of losing her, sometimes too tightly. Eventually, as he feared, he did lose her again. He couldn't watch over her constantly, and in those inevitable moments of ordinary life, cleaning the bathtub, preparing food, checking tire pressure, she slipped away. After she left, the narrator experienced profound sadness. He wishes for a device that could accurately measure and record grief. Thinking of this, whenever he checks his tire pressure, a mundane task now connected to his lost. Then comes the devastating news. A middle-of-the-night phone call informing him that M has died by her own choice. With her death, the narrator feels he has lost his 14-year-old self permanently. He imagines this part of himself locked in a safe at the bottom of the ocean, guarded by ancient creatures. The pleasant western wind no longer blows, and sailors worldwide mourn her passing. The narrator considers himself the second loneliest man on earth, reserving the position of loneliest from his husband. He knows almost nothing about this man, except his deep voice. He often sits by a unicorn statue in a park, contemplating what it means to be the loneliest person on earth. He understands second loneliest, but believes a vast gulf separates these two positions. The narrator reflects on becoming what he calls men without women, a condition that arrives unexpectedly and irreversibly. Only those who have become such men can understand the heartbreak of losing that metaphorical western wind, of having 14 stolen away forever. As he sits by the unicorn statue, he prays that his husband might someday recover, hoping he'll remember the essential things while forgetting what's unimportant. The narrator continues to wonder why his husband called him that night. He speculates that M must have told her husband something about him, though he cannot imagine what significance he held for her. The narrator contemplates what makes M unique. Her unusual sense of beauty and offbeat values that often left him puzzled. He recalls a meaningful childhood memory where 14-year-old M broke her brand new eraser in half to share with him, a gesture that he believes caused jealousy in her future husband. This seemingly small act held extraordinary significance for the young narrator, describing it as like handing over a dozen old barns to a gigantic tornado. We see him developing a ritual of sitting by a unicorn statue, contemplating what it means to be among men without women. He sees the solitary unicorn as a symbol of their shared loneliness, imagining men like himself quietly parading down streets wearing unicorn badges. No music, no flags, just silent witnesses to their condition. The narrator explains how easy it is to become a man without women. You love a woman deeply, and then she goes off somewhere. That's all it takes. Sometimes crafty sailors take them away to distant ports, or sometimes women take their own lives. Either way, the result is the same profound loneliness that seeps deep down inside your body, like a red wine stain on a pastel carpet. In this state of being without women, the narrator describes how everything changes. Sounds, sensations, distances, and even everyday experiences like riding the subway or ordering at Starbucks. The world becomes a vast, poignant mix. Very much the far side of the moon. We learn that the narrator and M dated for about 2 years. Not a very long time, but a substantial 2 years, seeing each other only a few times a month. Each had their reasons, and ultimately, these reasons drove them apart despite his desperate attempts to hold on. The narrator's most vivid memories of M center around her peculiar love for elevator music, Percy Faith, Mantovani, Raymond Lefebvre, and other similar artists. While he preferred rock and blues, M always carried cassettes of elevator music that she would play during their drives together. M explained her attachment to this gentle music as a question of space. It transported her to a vast, open place without boundaries, where she could simply exist without worry or pain. "I'm sure in heaven Percy Faith is playing the background music," she once told him while he rubbed her back. Their intimate moments were always accompanied by these soft melodies, particularly Percy Faith's "A Summer Place," a connection so strong that the song still evokes physical responses in him years later. Now, elevator music joins the list of things the narrator has lost. He fantasizes about a stranger entering his car and playing "A Summer Place." Though he acknowledges this can never happen, his car doesn't even have a cassette player anymore. That's what it's like to lose a woman, he reflects. And at a certain time, losing one woman means losing all women. That's how we become men without women. Everything associated with her vanishes. The music, the tender moments of rubbing her back, leaving only fragments of memory like an old broken piece of eraser. In the conclusion, the narrator hopes M is in heaven now, enveloped by the boundless elevator music she loved. He prays that occasionally her thoughts might turn to him, though he acknowledges this might be asking too much. Most importantly, he wishes for her happiness and peace, with Muzak playing eternally. As one of the men without women, prayer feels like the only thing left for him to do. The narrator's journey reveals the universal truth that loss reshapes our understanding of love and self, leaving permanent marks on our souls that transform how we experience the world. The empty spaces left by those we lose become part of who we are, defining our existence as much as the connections we once held. In the quiet moments of reflection, perhaps all men without women find that same bittersweet solace, the understanding that having loved deeply is both our greatest wound and our most meaningful blessing. This video was powered by the AI Pandora.io.